Hey Donnie, how you doing? I've got your work up right here, and I was kind of looking right here. It's definitely harder than it looks, and it definitely is. I totally agree because there's a lot of things to keep track of here, and basically you're trying to kind of juggle three or four different things to try to keep this as neat and clean and paying attention to letter spacing, etc. Um, so yeah, it's not an easy assignment by any means. Yeah, so. Okay, let's go take a look at your work. I've got your work up right here. All right, so I think it's a great start. I think you've got some really good things going on here. The craft is impeccable. Really nice job there. I think there's some inconsistencies here in the size of the letter forms, and those are basically based on the fact that the baseline and the mean line and cap line. The baseline, first of all, is not level. We can see it's lower here than it is here, and we can show that simply by taking this and using it as a straight edge. I'm going to place this at the bottom of that. That's where that baseline is right there, and we can clearly see how much different it is on the right side. We come over to the mean line. The mean line's looking pretty level, and the cap line, again, is not quite. A cap line is also going up a little bit sloped as well. So you really want to pay attention to getting those, especially that baseline. Got to get that perfectly level. Once you do that, I think that, well, okay, so right now we can take a look at this and we can see that the letters starting here seem to be larger and get progressively smaller as we move to the end of the word. And the reason, of course, is because the baseline and the mean line are kind of converging, okay? So you've got no choice if you're following your guides than to force these letters to become smaller. And that's a little problematic, and that's why it's so important to get that baseline perfectly level and make sure the mean line and the cap line are perfectly parallel with that baseline. Once you get your guide set, the rest is a matter of craft and spacing. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of the shapes of the letter forms. Okay, so we can see the B. See that this B should be a true vertical. Right? See, that's true vertical. This isn't. And again, I can use this as a straight edge, and we jump over here, and we can see that the top of the B, there's more space right there, so indicating that that B is on a diagonal. And I think we can see a lot of the same thing in different areas of your letter form. So you want to shoot for true verticals and true horizontals. Okay, no slants like that. Some of the other letter forms, I think that other than that, the B is looking pretty good. The A's are somewhat inconsistent, and so we can see that the best way to judge the consistency of the letter forms is to take a look at the counter space, or this kind of negative space right here and here, and that should be identical in each of the three examples. Same thing with this shape in the N, and also this little shape right here in the N. So you really want to shoot for extreme consistency and accuracy in the depiction of these letter forms. One other thing I'd like you to notice is that the variable stroke width right here, this variable stroke weight right here, this lower A, look how much thinner this is right here, this letter as it meets the vertical stem. It's really thin right there as compared to this. And we really need to see that. We can see it somewhat here, but not so much here and here. So you definitely want to depict that. And then also that variable width, that stroke width is also present right here, as we can see in the end. See how much thinner that is there than here and here. So you definitely want to depict those and pay attention to that in your final iteration. Now let's talk about letter spacing. I think what you have here is what I would consider perfectly normal letter spacing. Normal meaning the spacing between each of the letters seems to be very consistent. That's a great place to start. It's a great place to understand why letter spacing is so important. So letter spacing is important because you want this volume between the letters to appear to be the same in between any combinations of letters. Okay, so if you were to pour a pitcher of water in here, you want this to fill up the same as this filled up, right? You might have to ignore this little area right here, but for the most part, you just kind of want to take a look at this volume here and make sure there's consistencies. So we can see this space, this negative space here between these two letters. Let's take a look at this area right here. Okay, now we can see there's a lot more, it's a different shape than this area right here, right? So this would consume more water if we were to fill this up with water, right? And again, we'll just draw a line right there, okay, for simplicity, right? So what we want to do is we want to bring these two letters closer together to reduce the amount of volume right there, and then increase here to increase the amount of volume. So this is the general rule, what you want to do, all right? The most narrow space should be between two curved letter forms, all right? Then the next widest space between a straight letter form and a curved letter form, and then the widest space between two straight letter forms, Okay, and those are the only combinations. Here's a straight and a curve. Here's two straights. Here's a straight and a curve. Here's a straight, two straights, and then here's two curves. Okay, so you have each combination here. The only thing that this word doesn't have is diagonals, and we'll get to that as we move through the class. So again, that formula is the most narrow space between two curved letter forms, followed by the next widest space between a straight and a curve, and then the widest space between two straights. And again, the reasoning behind this is to ensure that that the volume between letter forms appears to be equal. This is important because you want this to be consistent, and you also want it to be you don't want any gaps. Okay, so a space. Anytime you see a space in writing and text, the mind automatically wants to pause. So if there are inconsistent spaces, it slows down the reading, the viewer's reading, tremendously. Because if there was a wide space right here between the N and the A, we would read this as Ben-ana as opposed to banana. So you can see that if in a paragraph or even a sentence that has inconsistent spacing in the letters, there's going to be a lot of breaks. The mind is going to want to break at every one of those spaces, right? And we don't want that. We want to be able to expeditiously read through each word and each letter in each word. So we want to look at banana as one word, boom, banana, as opposed to banana. You see what I'm saying? And that's why letter spacing is so important. Okay, great start. If you have any questions at all, Donnie, let me know. I'll be glad to make any necessary clarifications. But go ahead and let's go ahead and address those changes for your final submission, which is due coming up this Sunday. Okay, and again, if you have any questions at all, please let me know. Thanks very much.